Welcome in, folks, to the World of Football. I'm your host, Adam Snow, and joining me, as always, is the founder of the World of Football, my father, Randy Snow. Dad, how are you doing on this blessed conclusion of Week 8 in AF1 action?
Well, we got through another week, didn't have any games canceled, so that's a good thing. And some exciting games, especially one of them was a very exciting game.
Well, while there was not an outright cancellation, there is something I kind of want to float on a little later, not a conspiracy, but a little cancellation that did go kind of unnoticed, but we'll talk about that a little later.
Okay.
Before we talk about the Week 8 slate of games, guys, I'd like to remind you all to like, comment, subscribe to this channel. It helps us out. Telling a friend helps us out. So we greatly appreciate everybody who's checked out our videos and given us feedback. Without further ado, let's jump into this past weekend's action of AF1 football. And it started on, Saturday night, which saw the Billings Outlaws go into Southwest Kansas, and they just, despite the infusion of talent from, a couple of players, 3 players from Corpus Christie's mass exodus, whatever the heck's happening down there in Corpus Christi. They got Darius Prince, the wide receiver. They got Dwayne Hollis, the defensive back, and they got Terrence Ames Jr., the offensive lineman. So when Billings got this infusion of talent, it was like, all right, Billings should have a good shot to get a nice win on the road against the Southwest Kansas Storm, who we've talked about all year, up and down. But not so fast, my friend, because the Southwest Kansas Storm took this one 49-31. What are your thoughts?
Well, I watched a good share of this game. Billings was up 7-6 at the end of the first quarter. The Storm, however, was up 29-18 at halftime. The Storm went up 36-18 after a pick-6 interception off the nets was returned for a touchdown by Reggie Bracey. That was quite a play. Southwest Kansas then was up 43-25 at the end of the third quarter, and each team scored just 6 points in a really sloppy fourth quarter in that game. And like you said, I think it's going to take a while for these new players to gel in Billings, but I think they'll eventually all get on the same page, and they'll be much better after this one.
I hope so. Time's running out for this team, and we don't like to talk a whole lot about a lot of the off the field stuff that happens, but there was one kind of thing that did happen as a result of the Billings Outlaws losing this, and that was owner Steven Titus, friend of the show, Randy's best friend, did take to X, kind of posting some thoughts about some disappointment after starting 2-4. We won't read the whole thing; it's up on the screen right now. But he had multiple bullet points about kind of where everything's kind of sitting. And did you get a chance to see Steven's list, and what would you think about his post?
I did see it. It's very honest, to say the least. And I think his first one was losing sucks or something like that. And that's he's after last year, he's not really used to that. So this has been a wake up call so far at this point of the season. But I do believe that Billings can turn things around. I really do.
I do too. We'll have to see. The quarterback situation was a smidge better, but they got to get this team gelled together. And with Darius Prince on your team, I think they'll give them a shot. All those guys they got, so it could turn around quickly. But pump the brink. Southwest Kansas though is a good team. But I do like the honesty of Steven Titus. We all know that, and he's dedicated. Coach Walker's dedicated to putting out a winning team. And while it's not time to throw the panic alarm up just yet, I think it is interesting. Just the open honesty Steven Titus is throwing out there, which we all appreciate. We all beg for the transparency and the unfortunate side of what goes on with these small arena indoor teams. It's the nature of the business, and with the way things are, the economy, all that outside stuff is affecting stuff too. It would stink if something happens to this Billings team, that's out of their control. So, but on the field though, we hope they get it turned around. I know you're technically a Billings fan.
Yes.
While I'm rooting for Billings. I'm rooting for all these teams to have great seasons and put up good stuff. It stinks to see, but I like it. Southwest Kansas though, just played a heck of a game. They did what they had to do, and you got to give them a lot of credit, because I don't think they let Billings get back in the lead after that initial score. I forget the exact timeline of scoring, but
Yeah, well, basically after halftime, it was pretty much over with. They kind of hung in there for a while, but yeah, it just wasn't good enough. Yeah,
Yeah,
as fans we don't like to think about all the behind the scenes stuff. Is the community supporting you? Is the state supporting you? And all this other stuff. It's important to these small teams. AF1 level. Uh, some have it better than others, and as fans, we're just sitting here in Kalamazoo watching these games on TV, and that's we're invested in the final product. But man, there's so much that goes into indoor and arena football that we just don't hear a lot about.
that's true. And even back when we were season ticket holders of the Rampage, teams moved a lot. Even Grand Rapids technically came from, was it the
Massachusetts, yeah,
Massachusetts
Massachusetts Marauders, I believe they were.
Marauders, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So teams are going to move, and Steve's going to have to do what he needs to do for his team. And that means moving them to a different city, a city that'll want them and support them. He's got to do what he's got to do. So it's hard to blame him. I mean, it stinks for the town of Billings and those fans there who've been dedicated to that team for all these years. But at the end of the day, it is a business, and they got to do what's right by them. And I want to throw out there, Steven, they are building a new arena in Kalamazoo that'll open up here in a couple of years. So I'm just saying, the Kalamazoo Outlaws has a nice ring to it. I'm just saying.
yeah. I'd look good in a white cowboy hat, I guess.
Oh, what? That would be the day. Let's not get to that.
That will be the day. Yeah.
Woof. I don't know if I could handle you in a cowboy hat. All right, let's move on to the next game. And I'm calling this probably the game of the season. It was a barn burner. It was exciting to watch start to finish as the Salina Liberty gave the Albany Firebirds a heck of a scare. They took this game to the first ever league overtime game. How about that? As they fell in Albany to the Firebirds 64-58. This keeps Albany's record perfect. But this just goes to show how Salina's really turned things around the last couple of weeks. They've got a nice couple of wins in a row, and we saw what they did in their last meetup with the Firebirds that first half when they were only down 21-20. And if we said from then, because they kind of fell apart in that second half, we said if they could just put together a full four quarters, they could give this Firebirds team a run for their money. And boy, did they. And they had their chance to win this game a couple of times at the end, and they just kind of shot themselves in the foot. We'll get into that in a second. But what are your thoughts on this overtime thriller in the AF1?
Yeah, this went about the way I expected it to go. I knew Salina was much improved. I knew that they were going to push Albany right to the end of the game for fourth quarters. And as it turns out, it took overtime. 122 combined points, which is the most for an AF1 game. 64-58. Um, and then sudden death. 58-58 at the end of regulation. Sudden death comes along, and it's the first team to score that wins. Not each team gets a possession, whatever. No, it's the first score that wins the game. And this is interesting. A deuce could have won it. Whoever got the ball, they could have kicked a deuce on the opening kickoff or overtime, and the game would have been over. They would have won by 2 points.
Right.
But the overtime periods are 5 minutes, I guess, and
Yep.
the touchdown for Albany came with 1 minute and 54 seconds left in overtime when Sam Castronova found Isaiah Scott in the end zone for the winning touchdown. No need for an extra point. It's done. It's over. Congratulations, Albany.
Yeah, they gave their fans a heck of a show there. There was some confusion going into overtime. Even the referees didn't act like they knew the rules because initially the Salina Liberty were declining. The way the refs were making it sound was they kind of announced it as it was a 2-period overtime. And so initially the Salina player was like declining it. Like, no, we'll kick the ball first. And then the coach comes running over like, wait, it's sudden death, isn't it? No, we want the ball. Like, it was a whole mess. I was like, oh, here we go. The refs don't know the rules. The AF1 tweeted out, the overtime rules, like, as this was happening, and it was kind of a, not an ugly look, but it was like, yikes, did these referees not know what's happening right now? And it was a little cringy at first, but they got things sorted out, and they gave Salina the ball first. But like you said, a deuce could have won it, and you had Henry Nell, in my opinion, the league MVP right now. At me, everybody, but he could have kicked a deuce to start overtime, and it would have been done. So that's also the risk you now have to think about in some of these games, and especially against an Albany team. Like, do you give them the ball first and see if you can stop their awesome offensive firepower, or do you let them kick, and then you have Henry Nell just kicking the deuce winner right there to end your game, or say he doesn't, and you have to go against that great Albany defense. It was like there was no way to really have a nice clean path to victory for a team playing Albany. But Salina gets the ball back. They go 4 and out, and to me, when they were at fourth and long or whatever it was, I think it was like 4th and 2, and the ball got batted down. I was like, what are we doing here? I get wanting to keep the ball moving, but wouldn't you have, in hindsight's 2020, wouldn't you kick the field goal? Wouldn't you try to at least kick the field goal? You pin, I mean, maybe they return it, maybe they don't, maybe you make it. Who knows at this point? How much faith you got in your kicker? I was shocked that Salina didn't at least try to kick that field goal in that spot, as opposed to what happened. It got knocked down. Like, yeah, maybe you could have got the play, but I don't know, risking it at that point in overtime. Like I said, hindsight 2020. But Albany, goodness gracious, that whole team, all 3 phases.
Yeah. Well, now that you know that it is sudden death, that all you need to do is score anything and the game's over with. You've got to take the ball. So winning the coin toss would be critical. You've got to take the ball. Maybe you'll wind up with a deuce. Great. If not, you've got the ball. You can work your way down, kick a field goal. That's it. Game over. So yeah, that's the way it should have gone.
Maybe, but I mean, if you're Albany, they could have done either way. They could have said, "Nah, we'll kick it because we trust our kicker to maybe hit the deuce right off the bat." Or, when you're Salina, and I mean, you don't have a kicker that can maybe hit a deuce as consistently as like Henry Nell. Yeah, maybe you do have to opt for, let's receive it. And I don't know, there's a little bit of strategy to it. How do you feel about it being like a sudden death? Like it's a one and done, game over thing, and not giving the other team a chance to have the ball?
Well, in this case, with this game, it wasn't the team that had the ball first. It was the other team.
It's true.
So,
That's true.
But I do like the idea of at least each team getting a possession. But I mean, if that's the rules, and if everybody knows it, well, maybe they didn't in this case, but if everybody knows that that's it, you get one shot to score, and then the other team goes, and maybe they'll score. I'm fine either way.
I don't know. I almost wonder, and I'm just thinking out loud here. Like, I think both teams should get the ball. I like the 5 minutes though, because in arena ball, there's so much that can happen in 5 minutes,
Right.
let alone the 1 minute timing effect. I think you play the last 5 minutes like it's the last 5 minutes of a fourth quarter,
Right.
and you give both teams a chance. You play that 5 minutes. You do the 1 minute timing rules, and if there's still no winner, then you do sudden death at that point. But in this case, both teams did have a shot. So Salina goofed up their shot to win this game, and Albany capitalized. So no qualms about that.
Yeah, no excuses on Salina's part.
No, I think Salina, they've gotten better, coaching wise, player wise, all around. But it's just they made just a couple of errors there at the end. I think even going into overtime, like at the end of regulation, I feel like they missed an opportunity to kick a field goal and just try to get it be done there, and they didn't take that opportunity. So I think that hurt them. But real quick, how about Sam Castranova's performance? This dude played with his hair on fire, and so did Rakeem Cato. The quarterback duel in this game was insane. Sam Castronova was 20 of 31 for 330 yards and threw 9 touchdowns in this game. Absolutely vintage arena football to me watching this game. It reminded me like I was watching Clint Dolzell duel Mark Grieve or something like that back in 2001 arena football, even though I don't think they played each other that season. But you know what I mean? It was like that kind of game where both quarterbacks are throwing 7+ touchdowns. Like Rakeem Cato was 28 of 40 for 308 yards and 7 touchdowns. This might be the first game all year we've had 2 quarterbacks throw for over 300 yards each. So 600 yards through the air is incredible. That's what arena football has been predicated on.
Right.
And you had a bevy of wide receivers just making plays. I mean, like Malik Honeycutt, I had to message Trey from Off the Wall. Go check out his show, everybody, because he had Malik on his show last week, and we're calling it the off-the-wall bump as Malik Honeycutt went with 11 catches for 157 yards and 5 touchdown catches in this game. I told Trey he's got to keep track of that and see how many players get a statistical bump by going up on his show.
It's a
and then
thing.
for the Firebird, it is a thing. And then for the Firebirds, they had 2 guys notably here. Dwayne Brown had 9 catches for 132 yards and 5 touchdown catches. And then the other guy, Isaiah Scott, had 7 catches for 156 yards and 4 touchdown catches. So just unbelievable. This game, I want to say everybody scored on each possession at least until the third quarter, maybe the fourth quarter, where I think Albany finally threw an interception or fumbled at the goal line and gave Salina the ball back. That was the one time I remember a field goal or no touchdown being scored at all on a possession. And that kind of gave Salina the chance to have the ball back because Salina never had the lead in this game. Salina trailed or got to the tie the whole game. They never led at all. And I forget how many not lead changes, but how many ties they had in the game as it went along. It was up there, 6 or 7. I'm sure I could be corrected. But it was still crazy. This was your game of the season, game of the week, hands down. If you missed this game, go check out the replay on Evergreen now because this is one for the ages.
Yeah. Well, Castronova is my midseason MVP, so he had a great game, and he's been doing it all season long.
I feel like he's a lot of people's MVP going into the midway point of the season. But hey, that's why it's the midway point. We still got a long way to go, and I'll still champion for Henry Nell to get that MVP award. I will. I will bang the drum for him all day long. Henry, if you want to come on the show, give us a jingle. But all right, you want to move on to the next game or any other thoughts?
Let's do the last game. Yeah, we've talked this one enough.
Okay, well, how about before we get to that last game, Dad? We do a little podcast here at the World of Football. It's released every week. Dad, we have episode 392 coming out on Wednesday this week. Normally our shows come out on Tuesday. This week it will be coming out on Wednesday. Dad, what can they expect on this week's show?
Well, our top 3 stories for this week. The NFL has fined the Atlanta Falcons and their defensive coordinator a bunch of money over the Shedeur Sanders prank during the NFL draft. The CFL draft took place last week. Now, a lot of people might not be aware of that, but they got 72 new players drafted into their league. And EA Sports announced the release date for their College Football 26 video game. I'm sure you're waiting with bated breath for that game to come out.
Hey, who isn't? I'm excited.
I'm not.
Yeah, I know you're not a video game person.
I'm not a video game guy.
But hey, we should have a lot of other stuff too. We'll talk about some arena news stories we're going to tackle here, which will also be mentioned on the podcast. So go check that out. Normally released on Tuesdays, but this week it's special because we have to avoid Tuesday because it is announcer lady, aka my fiance's birthday on Tuesday. So we're gonna close up shop for the day and just do it the next day.
I won't know what to do with myself on Tuesday night when we're not going to talk football.
I know it'll be weird for us, but don't worry, you can still check it out on Wednesday, everybody. And we'll see what other news stories pop up between now and then because, man, it seems like we're always missing something after we hit the stop button on the record.
Yeah.
But all right, guys, make sure you check us out This Week in the World of Football, available wherever good podcasts can be found, as well as on this very YouTube channel. All right, now let's get into the last game, the Vice game of the week. I'm not going to lie, a little let down by this one after the high I had watching that Albany-Salina game, but the Oregon Lightning traveled to Washington to take on the Wolfpack, and the Lightning came out victorious 37-9. If you were hoping for fireworks, you didn't get it. This was a defensive game. This was a game that went into halftime. It was 13-7 going into halftime, right? So
yep.
A little bit more of an ugly arena game, but I want to tip the cap to the Oregon Lightning for getting their second win of the season.
Yeah. No, this was a rematch from last week. Isn't this like the 10th time this season that these two teams have played each other?
Pretty much.
I know they've only played 8 games, but it just seems like they've played each other 10 times. The Lightning were up 13-7 at the end of the first quarter, and nobody scored at all in the second quarter. So that was your halftime score, 13-7. Mm-hmm. In the third, a safety by Washington, followed by a touchdown off the iron by Oregon, Let me say that again. A safety by Washington, followed by a touchdown off the iron by Oregon on the ensuing kickoff. This gave the Lightning a 19-9 lead at the end of the third quarter. Lightning scored 18 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. So it just yeah, it was good to see the Lightning put together a dominating game like that, where they had it all game long.
Yeah, it was nice to see them actually put together a full game, and it's so strange, like how different these teams have been back and forth. Last week they played each other, and it looked like Washington could do no wrong. Yeah, they let the last 30 points go to Oregon, but Oregon taking that momentum into this game, it seems like, and really putting their stamp on things. Maybe giving them a shot to sneak into the playoffs. Who knows? But I like to see that they bounce back like that. And if you're Washington, it just seems like, man, whenever they get one thing going, it's like they take us like 2 steps back.
Right.
And you hate to see it for the team with probably the best uniforms in the AF1. Tough to see.
I know you love those Washington helmets, and you're dying to get a mini.
Sell me a mini helmet, for goodness sake, Washington Wolfpack. What are we doing? I will take my money. But nah. So look, not a game we're gonna write home about. Probably not a game we're gonna remember. I mean, it's tough, especially when that other game this week was just so stinking glorious.
Yep.
We'll see how these teams do going forward. Anything else from this game before we kind of talk about some news stories?
No. Let's get into the news.
All right, yeah, we had a few things this past week, guys. So after we got done last week, the big story was Corpus Christie and the crisis down there. There was the max exodus of all those players that were released. If you looked at that transactions page on the AF1 website, woof, it was like 8 player releases and 2 suspensions. We're still not sure what this Corpus Christi team is going to be looking like since they're on bye this week along with the Cats.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I didn't know what to think about that. I mean, to me, it seemed like that was the last thing you do before you close up shop. But we haven't heard that they're closing up shop yet. They're still on the schedule to host a game, or not host a game, but to play a game next week. So I really don't know what's going on in Corpus Christi. We haven't heard much from the league, and we haven't heard much from the team, other than, like you said, the transaction sheet coming out on that.
Yeah, and I'll probably have to keep an eye on that transaction sheet right now, just in case. As of right now, it doesn't look like there's been any movement other than Jalen Morton from Southwest Kansas being put on the league exempt list. So, interesting there. I don't know what time that just dropped, but as I go to the transactions page, that's what I see. So nothing with Corpus Christi right now.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see. Is it just going to be a team of scrubs the rest of the year because they couldn't pay their players their full salaries? Who knows? It's an ugly situation down there in Corpus. And it stinks because they had a decent team there.
Yeah, they did.
All that went down. So you hate to see it. They look like they could have been a real something, in this league, and just fell through.
Yeah.
The other story.
I don't know.
Yeah. So the other story, the big story that came out today about the Nashville Cats here, is that Jon Gruden, that's right, the Jon Gruden, former NFL head coach, is now stepping in to be a part of the Nashville Cats organization. What did you think when you saw this? He's coming into the ownership group as a partner. They get the big name. We know that a few weeks ago, the commissioner, who is also part of the Cats organization, Jeff Fisher, talked about other celebrities wanting to be a part of this league, and is this the first domino? Jon Gruden.
Yeah. No, this makes perfect sense because, as you and I well know, his brother Jay Gruden was a player and a coach, and I think I don't know if it was an arena bowl or just a nationally televised game that the camera kept going to Jon Gruden sitting in the stands at an arena game watching his brother either coach or play. I don't remember all the circumstances, but he's well aware of what arena football is. He saw it in its heyday, and I think he would like to see this league get back to where it was too, back in the 2000s, so early 2000s. So yeah, to me it makes perfect sense because he's a guy that's been around arena football, and anything he doesn't know, he can just call up his brother and ask him, and maybe he'll bring him in too.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think this is a very interesting. This is really good publicity, I think, for the league. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what kind of impact he has, other than just being a name now that other people can associate with this league. So I don't know. This just came out today, so
Yeah,
we'll have to wait and find out.
just a couple hours ago.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait and see because Nashville's got a big game this weekend. And why don't we just, well, actually, we first got to talk standings, and then let's round out with the upcoming games of the week as I pull up the standings right now. So after week 8, here are your standings for the AF1 as the Albany Firebirds sit at 7-0 at the top of the league. The Southwest Kansas Storm now at 5-3. The Nashville Cats at 3-2, along with Corpus Christie at 3-2. We'll see if they get back in the saddle this weekend. The Billings Outlaws fall to 2-4. The Salina Liberty fall to 2-5. The Oregon Lightning at 2-5, and the Washington Wolfpack at 2-5. So a lot of scrapping going to be happening down there at the bottom of this of the standings here to get into that playoff spot. As 3 teams tied at 2-5, make things a little interesting going into those final few weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be a sprint to the end of the season.
It sure is. And we got some pretty decent games, it looks like, lined up for this weekend. Well, at least one big one that I'm very excited about, which is going to start on Saturday, May 10th, as the Nashville Cats. The new look Nashville Cats. This is a very different looking Cats team from when these two teams last played in week 2. They're traveling to Albany to play those Firebirds. And I think this is another team that could give Albany a run for their money. Coach Arbett, who I think has done a heck of a job coaching this team. Rough start, but he's really turned this team around and really made them hard to say contender, but they're up there as one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league right now. Yeah. And if they can hang around with Albany again, like they did in that first game, they might be a serious contender for that title.
Yeah, and this is going to be your vice game of the week, Nashville at Albany. That's your vice game on a Saturday night.
I'm very excited for that one. And then also on Saturday, this is interesting just because of where these two teams sit. The Washington Wolfpack traveling to Billings to take on the Outlaws. Wolfpack, at 2-5, Billings at 2-4. Billings on that slide now, that 4-game slide, which didn't see that coming. And I think this is the perfect opponent right now for the Outlaws because the last time these two teams played, Billings kind of had their way. I think Washington held on for a quarter or so, and Billings just outmatched them, out-talented them. And I think Billings has only gotten more talent since then. And Washington's done some moves, too, to make themselves probably a little more competitive. So I'm intrigued to see what happens. This is going to be a bounce-back game for one of these two teams. The question is just going to be, who's it going to be? I would feel like it's Billings, but I've been wrong a lot. So It wouldn't shock me if the Wolfpack pull this one out, despite what our buddy Steven Titus wants to happen.
Well, this is the perfect game for Billings to right the ship and get all the players on the same page and beat the Wolfpack again this season. So yeah, this lots riding on Billings on this one, and I think they can do it this week.
Yeah, and then our final game of the week will be, we'll see, the Corpus Christi Tritons traveling to Oregon to take on the Oregon Lightning. This game, though, scheduled for Monday night.
Yeah, that's weird.
Very, very weird. And normally we record the show on Monday afternoon, so that means that we're gonna have a full Tuesday next week. It sounds like because we're gonna have to, do our podcast and this show somehow.
Well, if that game for whatever reason isn't played, then I guess we'll be fine. We could actually record on Sunday.
We'll see. Hopefully it doesn't get canceled. Hopefully Corpus Christi has a team to play. I hate the idea of replacement players, but look, we'll see what they end up doing. That's going to be the big mystery around here, but we'll see if they can field the team next week, and I'm sure that'll be a big topic of discussion next week when we get there.
Yeah.
Anything else? Did I miss any news items that you can think of before we round out today's show?
No. The only thing that you missed was the two teams that were on bye this past week were Corpus Christi and Nashville. Other than that, no, we're good.
Okay, well then, for the upcoming week, the two teams that'll be on bye for week 9 will be the Salina Liberty and the Southwest Kansas Storm will have byes this upcoming week.
Right.
Just so we have those bases covered.
Right.
If we forgot anything, check out the podcast again, everybody. We will try to get that all tightened up. It's been crazy around here in the world of football. You got renovations happening at your place. I've been preparing for.
I got people in the house.
Birthday/Mother's Day.
Yeah, I got people in the house doing renovations right now. I can hear hammers going and saws going, and Oh man, it's a mess. I'll be glad when it's over with, but that could be this fall sometime.
Yeah, it could. But look, uh, I'm very happy for the most part with what the AF1's got going on right now. It's exciting that we got to the halfway point with minimal issues, minimal controversies, since the kickoff of the season. Um, a little bit of iffiness with the Nashville Cats schedule. That was the story I was going to bring up earlier about how the schedule for the Cats like secretly changed with Corpus Christi because they were originally supposed to play this last weekend, but like their schedule like changed in the last few weeks. Even I missed it. I saw some people posting about that. So we'll see if there's going to be any more shadow schedule changes. Keep your eye out, everybody. But again, anything else before we say bye-bye?
Enjoy the games that are played, whatever games they are.
Hey, I'm looking so forward to that Cats Firebirds game. I tell you what. And another cool thing, go check out Royal Retros. They got the replica AF1 jerseys on their store right now. So clean looking. I'm very excited to try to pick me up one. I just don't know which one to pick up yet because I don't really have a team. So I don't even know which one I'd get. I could see you in a Steven Titus Billings jersey though, Dad. Maybe if you want to kiss some butt there.
Can you get the name on the back personalized? And maybe say best friend.
You know what? You probably could. I'm gonna guarantee you could.
Okay.
All right, guys, that's it for us here at the World of Football. We appreciate you guys checking us out and leaving your comments and your thoughts down in the comments below. Be sure to come back for more AF1 recaps as well as other football goodness as the arena, indoor, and spring football season marches forward. We'll see you guys next time on the World of Football.